Few prospects for a lost generation. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, I'm Florian.Heise and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my morning stein of coffee I'm still working through, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from news.com.au, which is discussing the career prospects for this current young generation post-pandemic. Not looking too good. So, gloomy career outlook for the youth in the post-pandemic era. The pandemic crisis is set to produce another blow for young Australians whose employment prospects are suffering thanks to the pandemic. Well, no, they're suffering due to the lockdown in an attempt to mitigate the spread of the pandemic. That's what it is, guys. I mean, the media, I know why people, it just rolls off the tongue. That's why. Young Australians in their 20s and 30s, I can still considered young. Not anymore. Not anymore. With a grey beard and 5 kids, I'm not young. Could be faced with years of poor career prospects, including low-paying and low-skilled jobs. Is that really anything new, to be honest? A new Productivity Commission report released on Monday details how young people struggle to find jobs in their desired occupation even before the pandemic. Yeah, so it's nothing new. And we saw that the rant video I did about the Labour propaganda, which featured a young lady who was frustrated that she had to humble herself to send out 10 job applications and only received 2 responses and only got 1 job offer. Poor girl, those 12 years of piano studies. I mean, does that sound like the traditional working class problem of a Labour voter? It doesn't to me. What's changed? What's changed here, guys? Some people need to learn how to be humble. And I mean, that's probably going to be a good thing for a generation. Dose of reality, will build resilience, a brighter future. The report looked at the various types of jobs young people found after graduating from university or vocational education and training between 2001 and 2018. According to the report, which focused on the decade following the GFC, young people's job prospects and growth in their salaries were worse compared to those aged 35 and older and younger people prior to 2008. For instance, young Australians suffered from the largest increase in unemployment and the biggest falls in jobs since the pandemic began. Many young people have experienced unemployment recently and are likely to face a reduced set of job opportunities as a result of the recession, the report states. This scarring could last some time. And this is the big thing that you'll start to hear more and more talking about scarring. And what they're talking about is where you lose a job, maybe you lose hope. Your confidence gets hit and you have to rebuild. Some people may not be able to dig out of that. Some people may never be able to take the advantage of all the training they've received. Some people may just step out of the job industry and just leave the workforce and go, you know what? Done. And which is understandable, but which is also quite worrying. I mean, that's one thing which I'll encourage people who are doing okay is just to reach out to friends who are maybe going through tougher times. And I understand that can be tough. And I understand you don't want to be around a negative Nancy all the time. Someone who particularly if they've got a victim mentality, then you just don't want anything to do with them. And maybe that's harder, but that's when a friendship really is challenged, isn't it? So, while young people's career prospects might have recovered once the labour market improved, such improvement is now unlikely for some time, given the crisis, the report found. See, this is the thing. There were already issues prior to this lockdown, to the lockdown of the economy. The fact that the weak labour market lasted for a decade means that many young workers will face long-term scarring, the report reads. For instance, last month the jobless rate for those aged between 20 and 24 climbed to 13.9%. And those aged between 25 to 34, it rose by almost 3 percentage points to 7.5%. These are pretty high unemployment rates. However, there was good news for those aged between 35 and 44, with the unemployment rate lifting by 1.4% to 5.2. Wait a minute, so I'm between this bracket. I'm still young. Bloody hell, cheers to that. I'm still young. Fantastic. Many young workers who took a job they may be overqualified for were labelled unlucky, according to the report, and say the number of unlucky workers have increased over time. I mean, why wouldn't that be unlucky? How is that unlucky? It's lucky just to have a job. You know, it's probably unfortunate that you devoted time to study, research, and gaining qualifications which have cost you economically. Study costs you. Even if it's free, it's a time cost. There's the lost opportunity cost. You could get the lower qualified job which you ended up with anyway, and then earn that money over the period of study. There's a Peter Schiff did a very good episode, and you can find it on YouTube, where he goes out and he's interviewing people about all their college degrees. And he's out at the red light district, and he's interviewing bouncers and people, getting people to go into strip clubs, taxi cab drivers, barmen. And they've all got degrees. They've all got degrees, and they're working in these jobs where they don't even need them. And I know, I was the same. We were encouraged to go and do degrees. You know, go to university, Now it's come to the point where you pretty much need a bachelor degree to get even a simple job. And, you know, I rushed. I went and did economics and accounting for a year, and it was horrible. I hated it. I should have taken a year off to sort myself out. You know, that's just part of life. So that's the problem there with these unlucky ones. They're unfortunate. They've wasted time. That's the real issue. How many people have you met that have got pretty much useless degrees working in, you know, certain fields that are completely unrelated? At least one of the advantages of architecture is, you know, I can work for myself, I can work from home, and some of the skills you learn you can apply to a range of different fields. You know, but, you know, when times get tough, there'll be architects Uber driving, guys, and they'll be able to give you tours. We see no evidence of improved likelihood of transitioning to better outcomes, suggesting that poor initial outcomes will likely have a long-term effect on one's occupation, the report said. Well, here's the thing. If you get qualified and you're not working in your field, your knowledge can become stale. Just getting a university degree, just getting a qualification is useless if you don't have real-world experience. That's one of the advantages of my degree. You can see I've got the QUT behind me there. Before I realized how discriminatory the alumni was and got embarrassed of them. Their advantage of our course was you'd be 4 days in an office, 4 days. 1 day would be at university. So they'd cram all of our architectural studies into 1 day. It was flexible full-time, and you could work 4 days in a real job. So that means you were earning decent money, earning above award as a student working. And sure, you would have no free time. You'd have to learn how to manage time. It would be really stressful doing a full-time study load and full-time work at the same time, but it was great just for the experience. You came out with years of experience that gave you a competitive advantage. You could get a job in tougher times. Now, I get resumes from people that have got no experience and are looking for a job, looking for work experience. The problem is, the architects here in Brisbane that will get them work experience. So will allow them to illegally work for free for a year or two, replacing a paid job. And that creates a class divide. There's some families that can afford that, where there are others who can't, where the work-study combination was a great opportunity for people to get the qualification and to earn, to raise families and only date architecture girls. So back to this. If anything, when we examine young graduates between 13 and 15, people who found work in lower quartiles of the score distribution were more likely to remain in those quartiles. Wage growth for those younger than 34 almost halved after the GFC and continues to fall for several years post-2012. For those 35 and older, wage growth slowed. For instance, growth in wage rates for workers aged 20 and 34 averaged 1.46% each year before the GFC, but slowed to 0.86% annually until 2012 and declined by 0.8% per year afterwards. So wage growth isn't even keeping up with inflation. And that's the dodgy bullshit inflation, which doesn't take account of the cost of second-hand houses, which is affecting the ability for people to spend, because we're all saving like fanatics just to get a property. So I can see why there's a generation that's quite frustrated. I can see why there's a generation that are in danger of pivoting to more interventionist economic policy in a hope of bettering their quality of life. Here's the thing: there's a lot of people that are not going to have the quality of life that their parents had. There are a lot of people that are putting off having children because they seem to think, they only remember back to when they're 8 or 6, seem to think they need to have the perfect house, everything like their parents had. They don't realize their parents grew into that it was a journey, that your childhood was a journey with your parents as they're growing up, as you are too. So this is compared with growth in wage rates for workers aged 35 and 64 that averaged 1.7% before the GFC and 1.36% each year until 2012 and 0.62% afterwards. For workers who remained in their jobs for a year or more, wage growth was actually faster for younger employers than it was for older workers, the report found. Whether you've got to stay in it. There's also been an increase in the number of Australians graduating from university during the last decade, meaning there is more competition, the Commissioner said. And the pandemic is set to make landing a job even more challenging. While some young people might choose to pursue further studies and return to the job market when conditions are more favourable, the paper suggests that if labour markets continue to be weak, additional education can lead to a mismatch between existing job opportunities and aspirations, the report states. The report comes just weeks after Treasurer Josh Frydenberg revealed the unemployment rate was likely to hit 9.25% by December, meaning 1 in 10 Australians will be out of work. And that's the ABS approach to unemployment, not the Roy Morgan one. And then you combine the unemployment with the underemployment, which is 25%, and then now we have the, what would you call it? The unlucky ones. What would be the overqualified employment rate? Can we find that data anywhere? I'll have to have a look. Let me know in the comments if you've seen it, because it would be interesting to see how many people are overqualified for their jobs. Because I've seen it. I've seen internationals migrate over to Australia, get a high qualified postgraduate degree under the pretense that they'll get a job in this country, and there's no opportunities. So, what do you think? Do you think in a year's time we'll be walking up the street like Peter Schiff, interviewing people about all of their university degrees as they're sitting there doing bouncing or driving Uber or riding bikes? I'll put a link to his video in here if you haven't seen it. Let me know what you think, guys. Let me know what you think about university education or getting a trade. Do you think that's going to be the solution? There has to be jobs for these people. There has to be jobs. As always, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can interact with the channel. That helps the algorithm know people are watching and helps it share the videos. You can support us financially via joining the channel on YouTube or Patreon, using any of our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin, buying our merch from HeiseSays, using Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or supporting us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.